Hello everybody, what is going on? Welcome back, Force here. Finally back from my trip to New York City where I got to sit down and talk with Jeff Kaplan and spend some time with the Overwatch team, meet some great community members. It was an awesome time, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm happy to be back home, happy to be in my recording studio, and happy to share some more of what I learned with you guys. Now, today's video, I want to talk with you about kind of the future plans for Overwatch. We're talking about things like expansions, DLC, and sequels. One of the things that Jeff touched on is kind of Blizzard's philosophy when it comes to this stuff with Overwatch. So we basically asked him, does he believe in expansion packs or sequels? They've expressed in the past that they're not too keen on the idea of DLC, but what about other add-ons or enhancements to the Overwatch experience? So Jeff said, I think an expansion pack or a sequel could be cool. I don't know what that is today. We don't have an idea where it's like, oh, okay, I totally know what it is. What I don't like is the concept of splitting up the player base. I don't like the idea that some of us can play on this map or some of us can play with these heroes and some of us can't. Just the way that Overwatch was designed, that doesn't really work. We can get away with the map thing. I've seen other games do the map thing, but then it creates the two matchmaking pools. It's hard enough to get matchmaking to feel good. It's hard enough to get people to play with their friends when you start to introduce that stuff. Hero switching is also key to the game. I can't imagine coming out with a hero that drives everybody crazy if somebody mains it and then that person not being able to switch off that hero. Or the opposite, where it's like, hey, we really need hero X, Y, or Z right now, and somebody's saying, I can't switch because I don't own that hero. That, I think, really strikes a chord with us as being wrong. So basically what Jeff is saying here is what they've done up until this point is what they plan to continue doing going forward. Now, there was another part of the day where he talked about this idea that they always have a lot of these cool ideas and this checklist of things that they would like to do and add and bring to the game. And it's only really due to the events doing well and to basically people purchasing loot boxes that allows them to continue to fund this development. Specifically, he said that we're always happy when Overwatch is doing well so that we continue to check things off of this list. And again, he's obviously talking about the financial side of things. Doing well means Overwatch selling more copies or people purchasing loot boxes. But this idea of them splitting up the player base, either by introducing paid-for heroes or paid-for maps or game modes, it's not something that's likely to happen. DLC in particular, they're shying away from because they're going with this funding through additional game sales as well as loot box sales for further development. And let's be real here, they've been on top of it. Every month there's been some sort of a major update or patch. Every other month we've basically seen a new event. Again, we're coming up on 6 events now with the anniversary one starting next week in a full year. So that's about an event every other month. I mean, the spacing was a little bit different than that, but nevertheless, these are all additions that they haven't directly charged for. Clearly, they've got their money from the game sales that they've had so far, which, what are they, like nearing 25, 30 million or something? And they've got the money from the loot boxes, but they're not charging for the new maps directly. They're not charging for the new heroes directly. And this is what we're going to expect going forward. Now, he did say at the top of that quote that the idea of an expansion or a sequel, he thinks it's a cool one, which means he supports it as far as I'm concerned. So what would an expansion to Overwatch look like? We know what a sequel would be. It'd be Overwatch 2. Maybe they'd add new heroes or redesign heroes, be a complete overhaul. That's something that's probably 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But expansions, he's okay with the idea of an expansion. He thinks the idea of an expansion is cool. But at the same time, he's not going to split the player base, as we've talked about. So I'm under the impression that if they were to add an expansion of some sort to this game, it would be in the form of some different way to play, a la something like a PvE mode. We've got our taste of that with Junkenstein's Revenge, and obviously the recent Uprising events, where we get to play against this enemy AI. And for the most part, I think those were pretty successful. Personally, Junkenstein's Revenge is my hands-down favorite of all of the event brawls. Sorry, Lucio Ball fans, that one's fine too, but I like Junkenstein's Revenge the most. So I do like the idea of them adding something to the Overwatch umbrella in that vein. I think that's something that a lot of people would like and enjoy. So if we ever saw an Overwatch expansion, I strongly believe that is what it would be. Maybe they add a story anthology or something where they take the Uprising event and then a ton of other additional events and they turn it into this like chapter-based mode that you can play through. But they're not going to be selling maps, they're not going to be selling heroes or anything along those lines. Now there was also a part in the afternoon where Jeff did did talk about the events, and the takeaway from it was this: we should expect more of the same. The events that we have in year one, again coming up to 6 now, which makes one about every other month, they're not going to be adding a ton of them in between. He said that they made them to recur, and they plan to bring them back with maybe some tweaks. Maybe they add another skin and voice line or two, and maybe they slightly tweak the PvE, like maybe they slightly tweak Lucio Ball or add some stuff to Junkenstein's Revenge. But we can expect those things to come back. The real question in my mind is whether or not we'll get something like Uprising back next year at the same time, or if they're going to use that slot to introduce a new event. But let's not get in our heads that we're going to be getting a new event in between all of the events that we got in year one, because the impression that I got from Jeff was that that is not going to happen. He specifically said that year two is more about refining and improving the events that they have, building upon them, and not adding a ton of new ones, but that he's not going to rule new events off the table completely. So just keep that in mind. Keep your expectations in check, I guess. I'm happy to hear their future plans for adding new content are going to continue to be free updates with heroes and maps and game modes, make money through additional game sales, and then the purchase of loot boxes. And if they do something else, it'll be in a different direction. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for me here today. As always, I want to know what you guys think of the video. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you have a good one, and until next time, I'll see you later.